Hey, loves, it's Dr. Simone Ellis with Beyond the Chair podcast, and I'm super excited, as I'm always excited. But I got some heavy hitters on this show, and I cannot do this show without the giant Dr. Andrew Hall, cosmetic dentist extraordinaire. I am super excited to have you on the show. Welcome, Doc. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Absolute honor to be here with you today.
Fantastic. Well, let's get into a little bit about who you are. You guys know, as
Sure.
Beyond the Chair, we want to talk to healthcare professionals, especially my colleagues. But cosmetic dentistry is not anything to be playing with. Some of you guys out here have some teeth that are kind of causing us to be really, really mortified. And this is the guy that can actually help fix that, make him great, beautiful. But Doc, I want them to kind of get an idea of who you are, where you got started. And also I want to tell you, thank you for serving our country, because as a military person, I know that you have dedicated service. So let's talk a little bit about your history. How did you even get to teeth?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had kind of gone through, high school and stuff. I was trying to figure out, hey, what am I going to do? And I actually just had a bunch of friends whose dads were dentists. A lot of that is pretty typical though, right? Typically we follow the line. Sometimes
Yep.
our fathers are dentists and that sort of thing. And that was very common where I went to school at the University of Florida. But that wasn't the case for me. But I just kind of grown up around some friends that had dads that were dentists. And I was kind of like, well, always thought maybe I'd go into medicine or something. And then I just kind of got this bug for dentistry and just, and fortunately the path opened up and I was able to get into school and that's where it all kind of started. That was launching point.
I love that. So none of your friends had bad breath. No, just kidding.
Yeah, no, not yet. No. Well, you never know. A bunch of teenage boys growing up, right? So
I love
else,
that. And so how did you
Yeah.
decide did you decide, like, from being from Florida, your journey, you're in Colorado. So there's a huge difference of
Yeah.
climate.
Yeah, that's an interesting story too. Yeah, because I haven't been back or practiced in Florida since I graduated from dental school. So
Wild.
I, like you had mentioned, I had some time in the service, so I'd owed the Army some time, and so I was fortunate enough to actually graduate from the University of Florida, and then I moved to Hawaii for a few
Wow.
years. And
Okay.
so I was in the Army in Hawaii, and did a 1 year residency program through the Army, which was a fantastic experience. I learned a ton. And then, I got to do some other, interesting stuff in the Army
I,
at that time. Just, it was a pretty, it was a fast pace as far as everything that was going on in the world.
yeah, yeah. So Hawaii, I always tell my
Yeah.
patients, like, especially the ones that are clenching or grinding, like, if you want to stop doing that, you got to move to Hawaii. So I got to figure out, how did
Yeah.
you leave Hawaii and you went to a cold climate? Like, you clearly don't like the
Yeah.
heat.
Well, I don't, well, Hawaii is one thing is it's a great place to visit. Absolutely gorgeous. So much fun stuff to do. Love the water sports. But to live there, it is crazy expensive. And
Yeah.
so that was the one thing. And I was kind of like, but there was that thought of like, okay, do I stay here? But it's a long ways away from the mainland. You kind of,
Mm.
it's like to get back to do anything. It's like, there were some challenges there. And at that time, it just made more sense in my life to try to relocate and settle down here in Colorado. And then you know how it goes. You put down some roots and then that just becomes home.
That is home. That's home. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
from Kansas, born and raised. I was
Oh,
like,
okay.
got to get up out of here. And then I went to college in New Orleans, went to dental school up Jersey. So we kind of have some paths as far as like getting away from places. And then I live now here in Houston. I want to talk to you about owning your own business, because you opened in 2008. And as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur to another entrepreneur, what was that like?
Yeah, I always preface it by saying, and the story is kind of based off the military thing. It's like I never had the best of luck. So I had to go back in the military 2 days after 9/11, right? So that was when I was going back into the dental corps.
No
Yeah. And then
way.
yeah, and then I decided to open a practice in 2008, a scratch startup, and I was just like, okay, so just don't follow my timing and
Yes. So I think you're
everything
like
else.
killing it
Yeah.
for like
Yeah.
trauma.
So I was like, just don't follow that. I can maybe teach you a few other things, but just timing isn't maybe my best thing. But opening a practice in 2008, I always say it was just good I didn't know what I didn't know, because I
Mm.
didn't know, like I didn't have like all these like really big years of having a practice and
Yeah.
having, and then kind of feeling all this setback, right? And so for me, it was kind of just, again, it was like, hey, I got to go,
Yeah.
and I got to figure it out. And that's just the way, that's the way I kind of am. It's like, okay, well, I'll bounce here and I'll bounce there. I'll make it work. And then I'll just grow the practice. And fortunately, it kind of just took off on its own.
I love that. I love that. And for the young people who do not know what 2008 is, because I just asked my Mike, I just asked Mike, I was like, do you know what a trapper keeper is? And he's like, no. And I'm like, okay, now I'm aging myself out. There was a financial crisis that happened in 2008.
Yes.
And so crazy.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what that was like. Oh, yes, I can, because I just opened my second office during the pandemic. It was great. It was so much fun.
So yeah, you've been there. So you've been there.
It's wild. It's a
Yeah.
wild ride, but what else in life isn't? So let's kind of walk up through a little bit. So now you've got your practice going and you decide to be the king. Let's give you your title. I mean, like, I want you to smell your roses. You're the king of the CEREC, the digital dentistry. You've got it down. How did you
Yeah.
get to that?
It's very serendipitous. I actually just met the right people along the pathway and just kind of had some good guidance of, hey, you should probably maybe look into this. And again, like I said before, I'm just kind of the guy like, okay, I'm going to figure it out. And I
Mm.
actually walked into a practice as an associate because when I moved to Colorado, I was like, okay, I don't know that I want to stay here. Practice for a couple of years, and he actually had a CEREC that, which is nothing we would use today, obviously, with the way the technology has transformed. But
Yeah.
he was just like, hey, here, you want to learn this, go have at it. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And it's just like I said, I've just kind of met some key people who are still very big in the CEREC world, and just kind of, they've mentored me. I've had the chance to turn around and mentor other people. And it's really just been that. And it's just, that was really the focal point of the practice too. When I opened, it
Mm.
was like, okay, leverage technology, try to understand that you're saving people time, try to make the traditional dental experience something different. Right. And so I always
Mm.
kid too, because I'm like, my patients are kind of spoiled. Like, they don't have to wear temporary crowns, right? They don't know any better, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if they have to go back to doing it the other way, I know I've had literally had patients say, well, if your CEREC machine isn't working, we're not doing this today, right?
Wow.
That's the only way I'm doing this, doc. And I'm like, okay, I get it, but yeah, and then I've had the opportunity to work with Dentsply Sirona and do some cool things with them, and been a key opinion leader for them for a few years now. So it's just all kind of snowballed, by, you don't really know. You kind of look back and you wonder, how did I get here, sometimes, but it's just, meeting those people along the road.
Yeah, and I keep thinking that you're saying this twice, and like your mantra, because I like to ask like your mantra, or you manifest, but yours is like you just figure it out. Like you just like I'm gonna figure it
Yeah.
out. That type of
Yeah.
tenacity isn't always as, how do I say this? Like you're special in the fact that you have that, because sometimes it's really hard to just figure it out. So I want to kind of go into a little bit more of the flow of the show. And guys, just for the topic, I realized I did not announce it. It's digital dentistry. Like, how do we continue dentists to implement that? And you're in the forefront of that. And I love that, because your patients, like you said, are spoiled, but also too, you're staying up with technology, and dentistry and technology is changing so much. I am going to talk to you
Yeah.
about AI at some point today, but just how technology is really,
Uh,
really transforming. And I want to talk to you first, manifest or mantra. Do you feel like you have one? And if so, for your career and what you've done, what would you say is what do you manifest, or what is your daily mantra, or something you subscribe to?
yeah, that's great. I don't know that I have the depth to actually know what I go through and say that to myself, and I probably should be the focal point of doing that. There's probably a lot of things more I should be like very specific about in life. But it is probably just like you said. It's probably just that I've just always been the person who, and sometimes to a fault. I'll be honest with you. It's like I'll get it done if and sometimes it's like I'll take too much on because I have to get it all done, right? And
Mm.
I'm not maybe delegating and that sort of thing. But it really is, my mantra. I think that's what my team looks at. They're like, well, we know Dr. Hall's got it in control. We know things are going to be okay, that sort of thing. But like I said, sometimes to a fault, because it's like, all right, hey, sometimes I got a lot going on. I got young kids, I got the practice, I got everything else. It's like
Yeah.
there's sometimes I need to be able to have somebody to help me bail water when it gets a little tough in the boat. But I have a great team around me, and that sort of thing. But I would just say that it's just, I just, like I said, I think probably ever since I was a teenager, it's just the way my mentality has been. I'll figure it out. I'll get it done, and way life was, a few life things that happened and sports and stuff like that. It was just, that was what influenced me.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that because I was going to go back to like, tell me what young Andrew it was like. Like, how did he get it done? Or give me the examples of where you knew, like, okay, I could actually, like, I'm going to make these things work. Like, regardless of what the outcome is, like, I'm going to at least put my best effort forward.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, I grew up playing a lot of competitive sports, and I was a very avid athlete. And not nothing that propelled me into obviously, professional sports or anything
Listen,
like that.
dentistry is
But
athletic, okay? I don't know
it,
about
it
you.
is, it
That
is.
is an
Oh yeah,
athlete.
yeah. No, I have, yeah, I've had similar injuries to athletes, and I have had back surgery unfortunately already. And even though I'm,
Oh,
I'm
no,
20 plus
not
years
back
into
surgery
it.
already.
Yeah, 20, yeah, that was 2020. Yeah,
Yeah, I
2020.
consider this a
So.
very competitive sport. I'm half deaf. I
Yeah,
swear. I'm like, wait, what?
yeah,
Like, what?
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I think my family thinks that I am deaf now too. But yeah, as a youngster, I mean, where that mentality grows in, it really probably, like, to be honest, the thing that impacted me the most is actually my father passed away when I was very young, so I had to
Mm.
figure a lot of things out. And I had a very good guidance counselor in high school who like went out of his way to help me. I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, and I was just like, I don't know what would ever happen if I had never met that guy, and
Wow.
where I would be and that sort of thing. But he was the kind of guy who set that in motion for me. He was kind of like, hey, we got to figure this out. You want to get to college, you have aspirations, there's other things you want to do. We've got to collaborate here and try to figure something out. And so I guess that's where that all comes from, as far as kind of who I am, and I guess my mentality, or that daily mantra of what drives me.
I love that for you because I also think that it's great that you talked about mentorship kind of briefly, like you mentioned it. So, do you feel like that experience is what now makes you feel like I got to pay it forward? And the way I have to pay it forward is through guiding people, mentoring them. Because if I had not met that person, where my journey would be, the impact that it's had on your life,
So,
you want to make sure you're impacting others.
absolutely, yeah, and it's a truly an honor. It's probably the one thing that I enjoy. I mean, if I could do that only and just teach and mentor and do that sort of thing, and had the capacity or the platform to do that full time, it truly is something I really love, and I've been given a lot of opportunities in that sort of aspect. But it's really something I do enjoy, and just whether it be training, new users on CEREC, or
Mm.
answering questions about cosmetic dentistry, or being in a think tank with some other guys, and just trying to bounce ideas off of each other. But yeah, I've been very blessed to, like I said, have some great mentors or some people that I really look up to, and that sort of thing. And then be able to turn around, like you say, pay it forward. I mean, I think we all need to do that. And in dentistry, especially, because it is
Hmm.
hard. What we do is very hard.
Yeah.
It physically, like you mentioned, it's hard mentally.
Oh, God.
Um, yeah, we can go down that route, but it's like, it's really a challenge. So for us to be able to not practice on an island and be able to talk to other people and be able
Yeah.
to understand that we're not, that we all have challenges and we all have patients that are challenging and that sort of thing. There is a lot of therapeutic value to it.
Yeah, I think that part of even my drive or my goal with is trying to make those platforms, those lines merge with people because I really do feel like you're completely right. Dentistry can feel isolating if you're not having the right conversations with the right people, right? You
Mhm.
can feel on the island by yourself. And if I'm being honest, when I came out of school, I opened my office 1 year after graduation, right? Crazy, right? So I graduated in
Mhm.
2009, 2010 I had my own
Okay.
practice. None of my friends had done that yet. So I'm out here like, and Instagram wasn't a thing. Facebook was still a group
Yeah.
for like, sliding in somebody's DMs and trying to be like a flirt. Like it wasn't the same
Yeah.
like it is now. And I'm imagining like, do you feel like dentistry is changing now that we are having these lines of, hey, not only is it hard, identifying that it's hard. Hey, not only is it physically, mentally stressful, but there's a community here that you can talk to, that you can dial in and let you know you're not by yourself? Or do you feel like it's still on the lines of, hey, I'm going to handle this on my own and I'll try to figure it out on my own?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's really I think you still kind of have to seek those groups out though. And I think you have
Mm.
to find out where you fit in, right? Because and even in dentistry, right, there's a lot of different thought processes. There's a lot of different practice philosophies. There's a lot of different beliefs and different, the way we should do things, just like any industry really. But I think there's at least more access
Mm.
to those things now, right? Because now we can go on the gram and figure out if there's some other like-minded people, or there's, I've met so many people through there, whether it be dental technicians, and had conversations around dentistry that I would have had, and learned products and that sort of thing, just from social media alone, and so yeah, it's definitely that access is there, but I think the problem, like you said, is that sometimes we just get stuck in our offices and we just kind of put
Absolutely.
we put the blinders on, and like you said, we're chair to chair, from chair to chair to chair, from hygiene check to whatever, and then we go home, and we have to take care of the rest of all that stuff, and it just becomes sometimes, I would say that you have to seek it out, and you have to spend some time kind of nurturing that relationship if there's a group out there that you kind of fit in with. And for me,
Yeah.
that was a lot of a lot early on. It was a lot of the CEREC doctors, the guys that have started CDocs and what used to be CEREC doctors. And so I have to give them kind of a shout out, because that was kind of a forum that helped me accelerate my path, and definitely taught me a lot.
Yeah, finding your tribe is so critical, especially in any
Mm-hmm.
aspect. Like, just so you're saying, like, yeah, find the people that you connect with, find the people that have very similar values or similar thought process, or even if those people don't have that, right, you can still learn from them. I love being in rooms
Yeah.
where I would say, if I'm the smartest person in the room, it's a problem. It is a
Uh,
big problem. So I'm super happy that you were able to find your tribe, because now it really brought you to the forefront of digital dentistry. So let's talk a little bit about that. But before I get into the technical side of our aspect, what are you drinking? And why I like to do that is how do you decompress from your day-to-day operations? You are doing back-breaking works. For anybody who has done any
uh,
cosmetic work, it is labor intensive. I am a cosmetic dentist. I understand that. I know that. So from the patient's expectations to your back-breaking job and your assistant possibly not giving you the cement at the right time so that a veneer breaks or a patient swallows it, what do you
yeah.
do to decompress? And it doesn't have to be alcohol. It can be something that you do to really preserve who Andrew is outside of the chair.
Yeah, so that I always kid that my therapist is my Peloton, and that's what I do. If you ask me, and my family kind of knows them, especially my wife. She's kind of like, okay, you're going to come home and you're probably going to need to work out today. She can kind of,
She
get a
feels
bearing
it.
on. Yeah, she feels it, so she knows. She knows. She's kind of like, okay, I need to get you a little bit of time here to, before we have dinner and that sort of thing. So that for me is like, and for me also from the standpoint we talked about, just the physical nature of what we do, it just helps me to stay healthier and be able to do things for my patients and be able to not, because there was a few years where I was unfortunately kind of practicing in pain, because
Mm.
of the back issues. And this has been kind of my, I was doing it before I had the back issues, but it also was part of my kind of my rehab process. And it's just my time to think, and or not have to think maybe too, and just kind of
Mm.
zone out and just kind of ride. And that's my decompression. I mean, I do enjoy a nice glass of whiskey, don't get me wrong. That's my go-to.
Yes.
But just after a long day of dealing with patients, doing whatever, getting home, that's probably what I'm going to do.
I love that. I love that. So for me, my
Yeah.
decompression this week has been actually spending time with my husband. Like, I've been having a really good time with him. We've
Awesome.
been like going out. I had to do some dental work on him. He is a drama queen when it comes to a dental procedure. But like going and grab some, I was like, well, we'll grab soup at your favorite Latin restaurant possible. But I like to make sure that when I'm out the office, I'm literally out of the office. I will
Yeah.
unplug, just because I believe that we all need to have an area where we get a chance to reset. And if you think about nothing, that's okay too. So I love that for you. I love that
Yeah.
your wife is thoughtful enough to know what you need. And I hope that you're doing the same thing for her as well when you see it coming down the pipeline for her as well, right?
That's a good advice. I will heed that advice. That's for sure.
Like,
Well, she's in the industry, so she's a hygienist, so she gets it
oh,
at a
wow.
different level too. So she also seeing patients, and so
Do you
she
guys work
understands
together?
the stresses. She works part-time in the office, but yes,
Oh,
we do work together. So yeah, we have that dynamic too.
yeah. Well, can I
Yeah,
pivot for a little bit and talk to me about
absolutely.
that? Like,
Yeah.
how is it working with wifey every single or every other day or part time?
Yeah. So it's great because she has the flexibility to do what she wants to do as far as when she works and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
The only downside is like you just said, it's like when you go home, it's no more office, right?
yeah,
Unfortunately, some of that, the one downside to it is some of that does kind of bleed into other conversations
sure.
outside of the office, which is only natural because if your husband's work, you guys are going to talk about what he's doing, that sort of thing, right? It's just that's what you talk about, right? Well, how's your day at work?
Yeah.
And so,
Is she pissed off at you if you don't brush your teeth before bed?
beyond, oh yes, she will get a kick out of this right now. Like, yes, yes.
I mean,
Oh
it
yeah,
happens, right?
yeah.
It
Oh yeah, it
happens.
happens. Right. Thank you. It does happen. Yes, and it's okay.
And
Like,
guess what? We don't floss every day either.
right. Yes, we're dentists. Let's be honest
Let's
about it,
be
right? It's like,
honest.
yeah, but yeah, so she's yes, but she's amazing. She's amazing at what she does. She's absolutely phenomenal hygienist. I'm blessed to have
Nice.
two remarkable hygienists in the practice, and uh, and yeah, it's great. But it is good because you know, I
She
know she
understands
has
you.
my
Yeah.
back. Right. I know
Yeah.
exactly. She has my back. And like I said, in every office, it probably wouldn't work. And I know a lot of offices, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But the team around me, they understand and they get it and everybody's on board. And so that's an important part of it for sure, is having the right people on the bus in order to make that even be a possibility.
Yeah, and I think that that's even important for systems and strategies, which I know has to be
Yeah.
critical for, doing your digital workflow. So, for people who may not know what digital dentistry is, or maybe are either archaic to the idea or new coming out of school, because, we have a range of people,
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about like, what is your virtual consult process, or why even start that? Is that a good idea for people coming out of school, especially if they're interested in cosmetic dentistry? Or for older doctors who are trying to get that to become a part of their practice, what advice do you have, or what does that even look like?
Yeah, so virtual consults, wow, that was a game changer for me. I'll
Mm,
be like, and that was something was late, I haven't been doing it 10 years. This was 2018, 2019 when I got into this. So pre-COVID, before everything became very common to
digital,
be
yeah.
doing, right, be doing telemedicine and all that sort of stuff. And I got, because it was actually the platform that I use, and there's several of them out there, but the platform that I use was actually started by a friend of mine. And and so I hadn't seen him in years, and I actually knew him from Sarek. And that, again, it just comes back to kind of knowing those people and finding them along the road, and then kind of reconnecting with him later, and then seeing what all he was doing. I was like, man, you're killing it, man. I love what you're doing here. I need to probably listen to you and learn from you. And and so yeah, so that, but it was game changer for me as far as allowing, again, I think if we are focusing on that kind of access, it gave me access to patients who were requesting consults about cosmetic dentistry, because I always thought, I'm a pretty good cosmetic dentist, but I still have to find the patients and they have to kind of see
Yeah.
what you're doing. And that was the biggest and hardest thing for me, because I think what a lot of dentists do, and I don't want this to be taken wrong, but a lot of them kind of sit back and just say, well, I'm really great. They're all just going to come to me.
Oh no,
Right.
I
And they
think
just
that that
expect
is
it.
exactly what I like. That's not a
Right.
wrong thing.
Right.
That's like
Right.
reality. Like,
Right. Yeah. And
I
they just,
open the shop and they will come.
right. If you build it, if you build it, they will come.
And
Right.
they
In the field of
won't.
dreams. Right. And they won't. And that was what was proven to me through my conversations with Dr. Brian Harris, the guy who started that platform, Smile Virtual, and some other
Oh
folks. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic dentist, great guy. And so that was what was proven to me. It's like, hey, I know what you do. We had worked with same laboratories, we had worked with same, stuff, and we all kind of knew what we were doing, but we're like, but it doesn't do any good if we know what we're doing. We got to
Yeah.
let other people know what
Yeah.
we're doing,
Yeah.
right? And then we got to allow them to see what we're doing, and then allow them to have a chance to come and make it easy for them to do business with you. And
Mm.
that was the whole thing with virtual consults for me. It was like, I guess I really understood the value of time and about like, and that as a currency as far as patience, and like, with the digital dentistry and the single visit crowns and that whole thing, like I really valued that for me and my patients, right? Because I understand that I can make more money. I can spend money. People are going to tell me how I have to spend my money. I can't make more time, right? Time is the only thing I get to decide how I spend.
Absolutely.
And if I can save somebody else time, then I think I'm really doing them, a favor, or it's going to benefit their life. I have to hope, right? In some
Absolutely.
way. And so it was kind of, that was for me, it was like, hey, well, I already value the time. And the virtual consults was just that. It was the ability for patients to kind of just figure out, hey, I've kind of seen what Dr. Hall does. Is he the right fit? Like, what is this really going to cost? Like, what's the process? And they don't even have to come into my office, right? And that was the coolest part about it, is because a lot of times I had patients who did come in, and then they had no idea what it cost, and they had no idea that it was, going to be $17,000 for
Yeah.
10 veneers, right? And it was like, okay, we could have ended this conversation and saved each other a lot of time if we just got that out of the front. But the way dentistry is done traditionally, that's not the way it is, right? We always wait
Yeah.
to the very end, and then we show them, oh, this is how much it's going to be. So it kind of flipped the cycle, if you will, of, hey, let's just be transparent. This is what we do. This is, if you want to work with me, great. If you don't, great. Maybe now is not the right time. Maybe it'll be sometime in the future, but at least you'll know what the process is. And like I said, it just makes it super easy for them to be able to do it. So if it's something that interests people and they want to grow that side of their practice, as far as like cosmetic dentistry or certain, maybe it's implants or all on X's or whatever, I think there's an absolute way to leverage that sort of technology of consulting virtually with patients, and being able to market that as well. It does set you kind of apart.
Yeah, and I think that what you're talking about is not only saving you time, energy, and effort, the patient time, energy, and effort, but that
Oh yeah.
also has to reduce stress. And I can imagine, talk to me about what Dr. Hall or Andrew was like prior to this virtual consult, and now talk to me about how he is now and so much better for it.
Well, it's not only me, it's also, just think about it from my team standpoint, right? So
Mm,
like if a patient's coming in for a consult, right, and they're just like, okay, because I've always been the adage, and it was something that was taught to me long before, is like, well, just, you know, and again, doctors will disagree on this. It's like, well, just offer a complimentary consultation. Have people come in, meet you, see what you do, that sort of thing. Try to eliminate barriers for them to get into your office. Don't charge them $500 just for them to come in and sit down and you to take pictures of their teeth. And so I've always done that, but it was still like, okay, that patient's coming in, and now I'm gonna have to go in and I'm gonna have to try to sell this whole thing. I'm gonna try to tell them what's going on, And again, dentistry, we don't like to use that word sell, but a lot of times we are when it's an elective procedure, right?
oh,
These patients
sure.
don't need veneers, right? They want veneers, right?
Right.
They want their smile to be enhanced. They want it to look like so and so. So the biggest difference now is that if that patient does the virtual consult, we've gotten all those little things and those details out of the way. They show up, it is so much more like, okay, we already know each other.
Yeah.
You already know what I'm going to
You
say
know
to you.
why I'm here.
Yeah, you know why I'm here. Like we've taken out all those things, and it's the stress for my, like my front office to be like, okay, well, I don't have to really go in and worry about them being surprised at how much this costs,
Absolutely.
because we've already talked about that. And I guess, like I said, in dentistry, we've just always done it a different way. And I just think that that's just kind of an old sales cycle.
Yeah. And I remember the changing point for me was I had the opportunity to go speak to one of my mentors, Dr. Rosenthal, as you know, from cosmetic
Yeah, yeah.
dentistry. Yeah. And then
Oh
got a
yeah.
chance to go, shadow APA. And I'm up in New
Wow.
York and I'm watching their workflow. And here I remember him saying, Simone, you got to charge them for your time. And it was a complete light switch, because I had been
Yeah.
taught a more archaic way of doing case presentations. You almost feel like sometimes when you are marketing yourself as a dentist, or even practicing, that like, well, you know what, I don't want to scare the patient based off of, what it's going to cost. But like you said,
Mhm.
you go to plastic surgeon's office, you were there
Yeah.
for a reason. Like, you know what you want. If you came in there to get boobs, you know what the boobs
Mhm.
are going to cost. You're not confused about that. But yet still somehow in dentistry, that is, frowned upon by the masses. So I love what you were able
Yeah.
to do, because when I got a chance to see how he was working and just being very authentic before anybody stepped in the door, if you're going to get veneers by Rosenthal or APA, you already know up
Oh,
front.
absolutely.
Like the appointment is there. So I'm glad, and I want to give dentists permission to be able to, it's not that you are taking advantage of anybody, by no means.
No.
It's just the idea that your time is worth something. And when you become more efficient with your process on your time, your systems and strategies, what it does is it frees up other time for you to be human, because we
Yeah.
do this as an occupation, but that's not the only thing that we do. You're a dad, right? You're a husband, right? Like, you're
Yep.
somebody's friend. You're
Mhm.
somebody's, confidant, mentor, and you need energy and effort to be put to there. So I'm
So true.
excited.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No, yeah, talk about guys that have systems in place. I mean, we can all learn from those guys about, how their
oh,
processes are and
champs.
that sort of thing. But yeah, it was cool. Like you said, for me, it just kind of, it flipped that switch of, okay, you're here now. And the analogy is great that you said, because you go to the plastic surgeon and that's the elective procedure that most patients, especially female patients, right?
Oh,
They
yeah.
know, and they know the cost of it. So the surprising thing to me is that, hey, sometimes what we're doing is actually more expensive than what they're doing if they're getting their nose done or whatever,
But
the
let's be
average
very clear,
cost.
though. We deal in millimeters, and I want to
Oh yeah, I get it. No, I get
always,
it. We
right?
don't charge enough. We
They
don't charge
we do.
enough.
I am so sometimes
No.
mad. I'm like, a
Yeah.
tummy tuck is a one cut and pull down. Okay, do you
Yeah.
understand that I am dealing with
Yeah.
each tooth in a millimeter, and if that is slightly off, it is a bigger deal. I think we got the short end of the stick. I don't know about you.
Oh, yeah. I've been knee deep in braziers and translucencies lately. Like it's just like it's the details, the devil is in the details and the
Absolutely.
results are in the details. But the details that's what'll frustrate you too, as far as just trying to make sure the patient's expectations are met.
Yeah, I can't agree more. So talk to me a little bit
Yeah.
about you talked about your virtual platform that you use now, but like, what were some of the tools that you didn't have when you were starting virtual consults that you needed to incorporate, or like more technology that you needed to have into the practice to make sure it was successful for you to go to the next level?
Yeah, it certainly is. And I don't want to I guess I want to be completely transparent about like if you do virtual consults and you try to like set yourself off like and market that, it does take work. Like I want to be honest about that. Like you got to put stuff out there. You got to be active on social media. Like all that stuff just doesn't happen. And that same mentality of like, well, if I just sign up, people are just going to start to find me that way. It doesn't always work that way. Just like we were talking about, the best dentists in the world, someone probably sitting in an office and nobody's coming there
Yeah,
just because they don't know about them.
yeah,
Right. So there was a few things I put into place, but again, it was allowing patients to kind of experience what a change in their smile or if they did veneers, what it would feel and look like for them, And so we did put in and try to implement some more stuff, which you brought up like AI. So using some apps that use artificial intelligence to be able to do smile simulations, stuff that a lot of dentists use. But it was something that we did start incorporating at a higher clip just because we were seeing more patients who were requesting that sort of stuff, or doing smile test drives and doing that sort of stuff. And so some of the processes and systems had to kind of change, and they're still kind of adaptive, to be honest with you, just to make sure that we are being efficient and the patient's getting a benefit. And we're also starting to work out the details from the moment that we start to talk about that smile transformation or smile makeover.
yeah. And so, what do you do outside of the chair to prepare for that, right? So, is that CE classes? Are you looking at different technologies that have nothing to do with dentistry but are coming down the pipeline that could impact dentistry? Like, talk to me a little bit about what you do beyond the chair to make sure that your practice is successful.
Yeah, man, I'm so invested in the practice. It seems like I don't have time to do anything else outside of it. But um, I would say yes. I do look at it. I try to read and follow those dentists that I think I want the practice to kind of emulate. I
Okay.
think that's important.
Who are those
So
people
I
for
try.
you? Like those, who are those heavy hitters?
I mean, because there's some guys that are on the digital side,
Okay.
of things and are killing it kind of with their practice things. Like guys you mentioned, like Appa, like that's beyond next level to me about how they do that and that sort of thing. And that it just amazes me. And I don't know that I would want to do that or,
Yeah,
travel like that. Like that's,
I mean, he's a
yeah.
beast. Like,
Yeah, yeah, and he actually lectured it at one of the SARIC meetings, like doing a thing about how to consult with patients and how to talk with patients. So it's just funny how all the communities kind of run into each other at some
mm,
point. Um, but yeah, I try to stay in tune with technology. I try to understand also what is going on outside of dentistry, because like for me, for us, as far as I've been milling in office, you know, restorations since 2005. And a lot of
Wow.
people didn't even know what that existed, but now everybody's doing it. Even the labs are doing it, right? Because
Yeah,
everybody's
yeah.
just doing zirconia posterior, so everybody's milling. And then there was this big shift towards printing, and we got early into kind of 3D printing and that sort of thing. So you can kind of sometimes just glance out at the horizon and see what's going on in the world, and then you'll kind of figure out, okay, is this going to affect dentistry, and is it something I need to start paying attention to or learning about, because it might have some sort of ability to affect my workflow, and does it have the ability to affect my workflow in a positive manner?
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about if I
Mhm.
was a dentist that's wanting to implement this process. Give me 3 things that I would need to do immediately.
Um, as far as the virtual consults, just
Yeah.
so I'm clear, yeah, you need to understand social media and how to promote yourself on social media. I'll just
Okay.
say that. You need to be comfortable with your skills of being able to deliver
Okay.
on whatever you say you're going to do. Um, and I would say the third thing I would say is document all of your cases. That was the one thing I didn't do as a young dentist,
Yeah.
is I did not document, and I did not build this library. And I sit and I think about it, I'm like, man, I have so many cases out there that I wish I had photos
Same.
on.
Same.
No, I'm like now to rebuild all of that, it's like, so that's the one piece of advice, not only from a like just to build a portfolio, but you can learn so much from cases and reviewing cases and understanding what you did well and what didn't go well
Mm.
by reviewing the photographs of the case, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I think I think about that often. I see Mouse walking around here in Houston, and I'm like, I did not showcase that. Even in Invisalign stuff, because we're platinum like
Yeah,
providers, and
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, you didn't look like this before. And sometimes even for the patients who are like confused about what they look like before, I'm like, so, before scanning
Oh
was a whole
man.
thing, you're just like,
Yeah.
did you remember what, okay, no
Yeah.
problem.
Oh
Let
my
me,
gosh. Yeah. That short-term memory of like,
it's
man, like not,
amazing.
it's yes. It's amazing and frustrating
Oh my
at the
gosh.
same exact moment.
As I see your
Yes.
frontalis muscle get really tense, let's go into some of your crazy stuff that you have seen. So, you've had pros with digital dentistry, I'm sure. One of the things that actually drew me to your page was the conversation about Amazon teeth and and let's talk just for fun, just for shits and giggles, right? Like let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about what some of the crazy stuff you see. And I think we all have these stories where you're just like what? Like you can't be serious.
Yeah,
So
I guess I see more of that stuff now. You see a lot of it just on
on
social media,
TikTok,
right? And right, on
yeah.
TikTok, and you're just kind of like, and it's that whole like, really, like, where did that ever? So I guess, yeah, I mean, we've all seen patients do, silly things as far as, whatever it is, gluing something back in or thinking they can get some party teeth off of somewhere, or doing, I don't, there's a big push for like do it yourself ortho, which
Have you been seeing
I
that? Isn't
never.
that wild?
Yeah, that to me is like, you would never do your own, like, remove a
Heart.
kidney stone,
You would never do
or
your
like,
own heart.
or
You would
like,
never do your own heart.
right, yeah, yeah. It's like, okay, well, it's just teeth. It doesn't really matter, right? So it's like, I never understood that. It was always kind of a frustration point for me. So I think that's where that whole Amazon thing was like, well, why can't I just go there and get it done? I can get everything else I want from Amazon, right?
Yeah, why not?
So yeah, and yeah. So I don't know. I mean, you've seen the most crazy stuff as long, you've been doing this as well. It's just, but the bigger thing is, to me, is just that patients they just don't get, like, they don't understand what, I guess, and maybe I need to step back, because it's like, oh, the common sense things about this. It's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
your veneers, it's like, how do we take care of them? What do we do? And can I change this, or can I change that later? Or can I not change that later? And those sorts of things. Um, that I guess that's what's really affecting my world lately, I guess. And so that's been what's been top of mind, as far as like, hey, I need to reevaluate my process on this, and
Yeah,
make
yeah,
sure I've got it
yeah.
nailed down. But anyhow, yeah, but yeah, that was a good,
It was funny. It was hilarious.
yeah, it was fun. It was a good bit. Yeah,
I
shout out to
love
my
that.
dad.
I loved it because I was like, oh my God. Like, yes, that's definitely happened before. I completely relate to that.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
mine has
yeah.
been really right now with Invisalign, which has been driving me insane. Like, yeah, I just decided to just move forward in tray 7. And I'm like, but you're on
Yeah.
tray 2. Yeah, but like, and I'm like, but I
But
know
it fit, Doc. But
yeah,
it
but
was
it
fit.
fit.
I
And I
just,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
so,
exactly. Yeah. Oh,
guys,
yeah.
like I did, like there's like school for this. Like, I'm not trying to be funny. I don't care if you call me Dr. Ellis. Literally, as soon as I walk out this door, please actually don't call me Dr. Ellis, because I
Yeah.
don't want to. If you call me Dr. Ellis, I always say there must be a problem somewhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a problem here. Unless I did have a cool story. I was on top of Table Mountain in South Africa, and I heard Dr. Simone
Oh,
Ellis,
wow.
and I was like, you're kidding me. That's the crazy part about social media. You never know where people see you. My crazy stories have been seriously. I tell all the new docs that I am mentoring, you really need to go into prosthodontics, because we are going into a denture era. I promise you, with all of these people doing all of these things. I'm like, dentures are on the horizon. If you feel like you can go anywhere to get these
Wow.
teeth done, and they're not teaching people about proper foundational work. They're not teaching people about how to actually preserve. There is physics involved in
Hmm.
what we're doing. I am like, guys, go into pros. Like, these people are going to lose their teeth. Like, it's a no-brainer. It's a
That's
no-brainer.
an interesting perspective for sure.
Oh
That's an interesting
yeah, I mean,
perspective.
because like if you go implants and pros, like just do it.
And
And before, remember, nobody would go into pros. You're like, wait, like what? I'll just do it
yeah,
myself. But now I'm like,
yeah.
it's because teeth don't grow back. Like you can't it's
Yeah.
just not gonna be that thing. So, um,
Right, but you see it. You see people going all over the world, getting their teeth done, doing whatever destinational, dentistry as we call it, or what have you. And the challenges that are, not to say there's not great dentists all around the world, but
right.
it's sometimes a challenge, and those I've run into a few of those, if you talk about just like seeing stuff and being like, wow, I didn't expect that as an outcome, and now we're really in a bad spot. How are we fixing this? And like you said, we got to, you know every time we work on a tooth, we're removing more tooth
We are
structure,
removing
and
more.
we're just it's part of the process, sadly, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and what do you think about the combo packages that you can get when you go overseas? Not only can you get your teeth done, but you can also get your breast and a tummy tuck, all for the low
Yeah,
99.
yeah, I know, and the funniest thing is I've actually had Instagram influencers who have reached out about doing it, which I'm sure you have too, right? And then they'll
Oh
say, "Oh, well, I have this guy who's going to fly me to Turkey," and not just this is just an actual conversation I
yeah,
had with
yeah.
somebody. So I'm not calling out any country. I'm just saying he's going to fly me to Turkey and do all this, and like you said, and it's only like this price. I'm like, that sounds like a hell of a deal, man. Go do it. I said, but what happens when something goes wrong?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Are you gonna call him up or fly back? Is he gonna fly you back every time, there's any concerns that you have?
Yeah.
I said, just be aware of that. I said, that's the biggest, piece of advice I had for you. And this was, a younger, Instagram
Yeah.
influencer, and he's killing it. Good for him, but I'm like, just take this as a life lesson, man. Just, from me to
It's
you, just be aware that it may be too good to be true.
there is a thing called buyer's remorse. You might have it.
Yes, yes.
It's I share this story too, where I'm just talking to my mom about this before I got here, so this is funny. My sister actually is a full-time influencer for her job and exceptional at it.
Okay.
However, it's very interesting, this world that we live in now, because I think that there's this concept that because I am an influencer, I should get things for free. And I was
Oh
telling
yeah.
her, yes, my sister has veneers. She got them done for free, but that's more so because she's my sister and not because she is an influencer. But I have patients that will come and literally sit in the chair and be like, yeah, so I'm an influencer, so. And I'm like, oh, and I love doing this because I'm like, oh, I'm so happy about that. Let me go get, hey, so my assistant here, she is really excited about feeding her children with that influencer money. So, Penelope, are you okay with working for free today? Because I just need to know, because I think that there's this
Yeah.
concept that like, yeah, I get that you have an
Yeah.
impact, but there's also services being rendered. It's just funny. So,
No, it did, and I had to learn that. I because that whole thing to me was because when I got into the virtual consults, that was my like I wasn't big in social media at all before that, and I knew I had to use that as a platform to try to grow that side of
yeah,
things.
yeah.
And man, you talk about a learning curve and learning things like that, and understanding that, and like I was just like, oh my gosh, this is a whole nother world that I was not aware that it existed. And now I understand it to some degree. But now it just seems to be changing, just like every technology. It's like, all right, now we're on to the next app or platform or what have you.
Yeah, I'm like, please bring back the models because the influencers have gotten crazy. Like the models, at least, like
Yeah.
I'm sure all companies feel the same way. I'm like, bring those guys back, So, what
Yeah.
would be some things that now that you have been able to really grow your platform, you've done an amazing job with your social. I think kudos to that, especially for someone who knows like it takes a lot of time, energy, and effort. Let's talk about the balance. How do you stay balanced? Where are some guardrails that you've put in place to make sure that you are being the most amazing doctor that you can outside of the chair?
Yeah, and that's something I learned. I think early in my career, I didn't put any guardrails up. I think and I unfortunately I was just like I was a mile a minute. But again, I think it goes back to that fact of the mantra was just I got to get this done. I
Got
got
to
to
get
get
it
it
done.
figured out, right? I got to get it. I got it's just and I'm you know if if it's going to get done right, I'm going to have to do it.
Yeah.
And that was the way took. Now I've been able to offload a lot of some of that stuff. Like I was mentioned to you before, I actually have a guy who helps with my social media now. Before I was doing it all myself,
Mm-hmm.
and as far as trying to create, plan, strategize, do all of that sort of
It's
thing. So
another job,
yeah,
right?
it is. And again, and like I said, I had no idea. And then it's like, okay, I don't need to be stressed about posting and worrying about this. And you're very active and do a lot of stuff on there. It's just like you said, it's an absolute another job. So I think offloading the things to the people that know how to do it and are very good at what they do is very strategic, and it can reap benefits that you would never know, try rather than trying to do it yourself all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I've had to do is sometimes is just to question myself and be like, all right, am I the best person to be doing this? Like, I mean, early on we all got to take that strategy of, okay, I got to get everything done. If I'm building a business, right, the young entrepreneur doing everything. But at some point you have to say, okay, I need to partner. I need to be able to be strategic about where I'm using my time so that I'm not getting burned out, like you said, so I can, be a good husband, be a good baseball coach to my kids, my kids' team, to spend time
Mm-hmm.
with my daughter, those sorts of things.
That
Because
matter.
if not, yeah, that stuff matters, and it's important, and it's and it should be important because we're not only defined by what we do at work. That's one important thing I think young dentists need to realize, because I think they and I don't know if it's dental school that puts that into our mindsets, or that somehow we're defined by like that millimeter or that
Yeah.
prep or that thing. And that's the one piece of advice I would give the young dentist is, hey, you're not defined by that. Now, granted, do the best you can, follow the principles, be the best doctor you can be. But at the end of the day, that's not who defines us. It's not what defines who you are.
Yeah, it's called practicing dentistry because you're always
Uh,
practicing, like, right?
no.
And I definitely agree with you more. I wish that I would have done that same thing as well. I don't know if it's maybe just the type of personalities that go into dentistry because my younger self, when I think about the stuff that I was doing, the intensity that I was working at,
Mm-hmm.
it's just almost unbelievable now to even look back. And I said, I don't know how one I was able to, because I think me and you have that very similar personality. I'm gonna be there, like I'm gonna get it done, like I'm going to make sure
Mm-hmm.
I show for my team, I'm gonna make sure I show for my patient, I'm gonna give it my all. And as people who know, listen to the show, I always talk about preparation that I do before I even get into the office, because
Mm-hmm.
we pour so much. We're pouring into our team, we're pouring
Yeah.
into our patients, and you can get it. We deal in millimeters, so I used to just, if something was not right, it would just destroy my whole day, my evening, just off of the
Yeah.
fact that I'm not perfect, right? And I
Yeah.
also am human. I would tell my younger self the same. Like, we've got to make sure we put some proper guardrails in there. And I don't think dental school does a good enough job of having you think that, like, if you're not perfect, it's okay, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just, and I think that that's why our suicide rate is so high, right? I think
Yeah.
that we live up to these expectations, which I think is important to hold yourself
Mm-hmm.
to a standard, but there's got to be God and grace somewhere along the line, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So at what point in your career did you realize that you needed to put those guardrails up?
When I got sick, when I got
Okay.
sick. My story is kind of like a crazy, we're talking to the interview right before this was, I unfortunately I was married at the time to my college sweetheart, and
Yeah.
we were going through infertility at the time. And so I was working a mile a minute, really mentally stressed out. And I'm running a practice. I'm about to open my second practice. This is before. I guess this was like about in 2014-ish. Like I'm opening my second
Okay.
because at that time my goal was to be one of these mega multiple practice owners, right?
Yeah.
Because that's fun. And
Yeah.
so I'm
Because one
planning.
isn't enough headache.
Because one, I mean, why deal with 10 employees when you can deal with
Yeah.
20?
20.
So
Yeah.
I'm signing me up for a stroke. So yeah, I'm going. I'm going and I'm
Yeah.
doing that. And my body, literally my organs, my bowel, my ureter, my fallopian tubes are all fused together. I'm piping Vicodin. I didn't even know this. I'm popping Vicodin every hour on the hour. I mean, like having so much pain that I would just drop instruments and be like, I'm okay. And my father is in the hospital passing away from an unexpected stroke
Gosh.
so that work ethic, I got that honest from my family. My family was just like, I'm the oldest, type A personality. You excel. You set the bar because you have siblings that are right behind you. And then my dad was a postal worker, so even though he was blue collar, he knew what it meant to work hard.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's what you see, right? You're just like,
Yeah.
that's what I do. And I'm sick, and God sits you down sometimes when you can't, when He knows that you're not going to sit yourself down, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So true.
basically,
So true.
huh? Yeah. So he
So
sat me
true.
down. He sat me down,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
after that, I lost my father unexpectedly. Like I said, I lost my marriage because I wasn't balanced, and I was
Mm-hmm.
suffering from a disease. So 3 of the 5 D's that they talk about: depression, death,
And
divorce.
divorce.
And it's one
Yeah.
other one. I never remember that one. I was going through 4 of the 5 at the same time.
Well, I
And
understandably why you figured that out. But unfortunately, I think in dentistry, it's not an uncommon path.
yeah, and I think that we've got to do a better job. That's why on my page, it's not necessarily, I used to push a lot of my cosmetic work. I probably don't do as much anymore because my passion or my purpose became more of how do I preserve doctors from getting through that, because we don't talk enough about that. That work-life balance is, we're expected to do so much. We don't realize how much we give, and then we can lose a lot in the process. Yeah, so.
Well, kudos to you for doing that and being a leader in that, because that is important in our industry. So I just want to give props where they're due for that.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate
Yeah.
doctors like you getting an opportunity to share your stories too and your vulnerability. So I asked that same question back to you. When was it that you decided to take care of you?
Yeah, well, it's like I said, it's not uncommon to you. I started the practice, was just going, went through a divorce, and then just was going through a lot at that time with, like, custody battle, like stuff, just life,
Life,
and it's
yeah.
just like, and then it's like, all right, I got to slow down here and figure out that there has to be some sort of balance to this, because I think my whole thing was just that work. I've got to be successful. I've got to grow. I've got to do this. And if I don't, I unfortunately, I thought I would feel like a complete failure. Whether that's a real, thing or not, I don't know. But it's just a matter of like, that was it. So it's similar. And then I just got to that point of like, I've got to put something in place in order to balance this out. I got to take care of my physical health, my mental health, those sorts of things. Because I'd seen several other dentists that I knew that were quote unquote successful, but they were getting out of dentistry because they were burned out. They just couldn't
Yeah.
take it anymore, right? They couldn't do those sorts of things. And I was like, so those were some red flags that kind of went up too, because these were colleagues and people I knew in practices that were very successful. It wasn't people that were struggling. It was
Yeah.
just they couldn't take the grind, of doing it anymore. And so, and I'm glad, because I do think right now this in dentistry, there has been a little bit more shift to that focus and understanding, and people like yourself leading that type of awareness and that movement, and hopefully younger generation dentists will continue and grow that,
Yeah.
to understand that we all got to take care of each other.
Yeah. I remember hearing this really good quote that was talking about falling doesn't mean failure. Like you can fall, and I think that
Yeah.
we all fall, but sometimes I know for sure for me, I used to think that if I fail, that I was a failure. And the reality is no, I'm human. So if I fall does not mean that I am a failure. It just means that I had a misstep. But the great thing about falling is that you can get back up. And I hope that more doctors take that to be home to say, hey, like every day I don't get an A. Like there's some days that I just didn't do well. And it's not because I didn't start my day off with all the best intention. It wasn't that I didn't try to do the best for that patient, or whatever the case may be, because there's so many days that I'm getting A's. I'm killing it. I am excited about it, right? We will criticize ourselves on that one problem and forget all of that one crazy patient that just hates you. There's like a room full of people that are like, I only want to see you. It's wild. We've got to give ourselves more God and grace. I always think that that's important. So now let's get to the fun part, because I like to kind of end with some fun stuff.
Okay.
So I like to go through a rapid speed fire questions, and I'm excited to get with you. So give me the first answer. Instagram or real life?
Real life.
Basketball or baseball?
Ooh, watch or play?
Oh, okay. Watch. Let's say watch.
Basketball.
Okay. Favorite team?
Favorite sports team? Florida Gators.
The who?
Florida Gators.
Oh.
I'm so a big Gator fan. College sports.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Beach or mountains?
I live in the mountains, so vacation to the beach.
Awesome. Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Mornings or evenings?
Mornings.
Tequila or whiskey? I think you already answered this one.
Yeah. Whiskey, but when in Mexico, tequila.
I mean, why not? and mezcal if you're spicy. Let's do snow or ski board?
A snowboard.
Okay. Oh, my husband will like you. I tried that one time and I was like, yeah, I'm a skier. So I was like, I'm never.
Okay.
I don't know how y'all like staying on your butts all day. Lumineers or veneers?
Veneers.
And favorite ice cream?
Cherry vanilla, actually.
Cherry vanilla. Okay. So you're a Cherry Garcia kind of guy?
Well, and it's not even that. It's something I growing up. It was like a local shop in where I grew up, and it was more like just vanilla with like those little chunks of like real cherries in it. So it was more like, So I'm not necessarily like a big like the Cherry Garcia thing, but it's more of like that mom and pop ice cream cherry vanilla.
Nice. I feel like you can learn a lot about a man based off of their ice cream. So, I want to first thank you so much for your time, energy, and effort. I understand how important it is, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much, especially for viewers to get a chance to hear your side of the story and shed light on your process and your workflow. More importantly, I want to know where people can find you. So, where can we follow you on your platforms?
So I'm on all the major platforms, I guess, now, so to speak. Like I said, thanks to my guy who's promoting a lot of their stuff. Mostly I'm active on Instagram, so you can follow me. I think the handle's on the bottom line here, right below us and the podcast. So follow me there. Reach out if you've got questions. If you're a young dentist, please reach out. I'd love to interact, answer questions, give you any guidance if I can, if all possible.
Awesome. Well, I have enjoyed this one. This has been a lot of fun. Guys, this is Beyond the Chair podcast, and I'm so grateful to have Dr. Andrew Hall support and be a part of this podcast. Guys, if you have any questions or concerns that you guys want to have about the show, I read the comments. So make sure you guys put that information out on Spotify or our Apple Podcasts, and especially YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time.